These are my Premier League predictions for the 2023-24 season. I can't believe that the Premier League is already starting this weekend. Honestly, this summer went by so fast, but I'm super excited for next season. There are a few factors that I'm going to be ranking this prediction based on, such as transfers throughout the summer, a change in management or ownership of the club, and also based off how they performed last season. So without further ado, let's get right into this video. Starting off this list at 20th place, I've put Sheffield United. Honestly, I have nothing against Sheffield United. I think they are a good team, and obviously you have to be a good team to make it into the Premier League, but I do think that their squad is the worst squad out of any other team. Sheffield United also sold their main player in Ndiaye to Olympique Marseille this summer for about 17 million. He was their main player in their squad for the last 2 seasons, and selling him I think was a big mistake, and I think that might cost them this Premier League season. Coming in at 19th place, I've put Luton Town. Honestly, I really don't want Luton Town to get relegated. What they accomplished last season was absolutely incredible, and for a small club like Luton Town, whose old stadium was one of the smallest stadiums I've ever seen for a professional football club, I think it would be so amazing if they were to stay up in this Premier League season, but sadly, I just can't see it happening. I think that with the help of their incredible home fans and their incredible support, I do think that they can win a few home games, but I think away, their form is going to be terrible, and sadly, I do think that they're going to get relegated. Coming in at 18th place, and I think that this is a very unexpected one, I have put Wolves. Throughout the last half a year or so, I think that Wolves have been going down a bad route, and I think that next season is going to cost them big time. They have lost some key players in their team, such as Raul Jimenez, Connor Cody, Moutinho, and even Ruben Neves. I've also heard some rumors that there may be a few problems with the ownership or with the manager, something like that. So for those reasons, I honestly think that Wolves are going to get relegated. Now we are out of the relegation zone, and the team that I think will come 17th place is going to be Everton. Yes, I know this will be the 3rd season in a row where Everton just survived relegation, but honestly, I think it's going to happen again. I think it's going to go out onto the last day, and Everton are just barely going to survive by 1 or 2 points. Honestly, I think that the main reason why Everton are just going to survive relegation is because they just recently signed Arnaut Danjuma. I think that this season he is going to score 10 to 15 goals, and I think that he is going to just help Everton survive this season. Coming in at 16th place, I've put AFC Bournemouth. I remember last season, their first season in the Premier League, everyone thought they were going to get relegated, and they proved everyone wrong. And I think this season they're going to stay up again. They did make a few good signings this summer, signing Kluivert, Traore, and also a Hungarian youngster, Kerkez. I think that from 20th place all the way down to 16th place where Bournemouth is, I think only a few points will separate all these clubs. But like I said, I do think Bournemouth are going to survive. Coming in at 15th place, I've put Burnley. Honestly, I think that Burnley's squad is actually pretty good. And last season under Vincent Kompany, they played amazing in the championship. For me, I just think of Burnley as a Premier League club. I can't see them playing in the championship again next year. So for that reason, I think they're going to finish in 15th place. Coming in at 14th place, I've put West Ham. West Ham is a very strange one for me because a few seasons ago, they were playing amazing, finishing in the top half of the Premier League every single season. But last season, they really underperformed, finishing in the bottom half. But even though they played poorly in the Premier League, they still won the Conference League, which is a little bit strange for me. Honestly, I think that West Ham playing in the Europa League will hinder them this season in the Premier League, because when you have to play all those extra games, it can really take a toll on a team just like West Ham, who don't have a lot of depth. I think that this could really affect them in a negative way. They also recently lost their main player, Declan Rice, who signed with Arsenal. Coming in at 13th place, I've put Fulham. Honestly, I do think Fulham will have a fairly average season, and I think that they're going to finish somewhere around mid-table. They did lose Mitrovic this summer, but in replacement for him, they signed Raul Jimenez from Wolves, and they also signed the defender Calvin Bassey. To be honest, Fulham do have a pretty good squad, but I do think that there's going to be a slight drop-off from how well they performed last season. Coming in at 12th place, and this may be another controversial one, I've put Nottingham Forest. I remember last season, a lot of people thought that Nottingham Forest were going to do pretty good in the Premier League because they signed so many players. But when you sign 10, 20, 30 players, how can you expect them to all be in sync and have chemistry together? You need to wait at least a season before they start to play well together. And I think that this season, these players will start playing well together, and that's why I think they're going to end up in about 12th place. Coming in at 11th place, I've put Brentford. I think that similar to Fulham, Brentford will have a slight drop off from last season, mainly because of their loss of Ivan Toney, who was the main striker in their team, scored a bunch of goals last season. But also, they just recently lost their goalkeeper, David Raya, as he signed with Arsenal. I think that these two players were key players in their squad, and for that reason, I do think they're going to drop down a couple positions from last season, but 11th place is still a decent finish. Coming in at 10th place, we are now approaching the top half of the Premier League. I've put Crystal Palace. Honestly, I think that Crystal Palace are going to have another fairly average season this year. Obviously, they did lose Zaha as he went to Galatasaray, but I do think that this season, Eze and Olise are going to cook. I think they're going to be phenomenal, and they will be the main reason why they will finish in the top half of the Premier League, in my opinion. Coming in at 9th place, and this may be a little bit unexpected, I've put Brighton. Honestly, I want Brighton to finish in the top 6 next season because they're probably one of my favorite teams in the Premier League, but honestly, I just don't see it happening. Brighton have lost a few key players in their squad from last season, which I think will hinder them this season. They lost their goalkeeper, they lost McAllister, they might lose Caicedo, and they're also playing in the Europa League. Those extra games that you have to play in the Europa League, I think a lot of people don't realize how much of a toll that can have on your team, because that requires so much more depth. If players get injured, you need to make substitutions, and this could really affect them in the Premier League, and that is why I think they're going to finish in 9th place. Coming in at 8th place, I've put Tottenham Hotspur. I think that Tottenham are going to finish in the exact same place that they did last season. Honestly, I just don't see them finishing in the top 6. I don't know why, but it's just something with Tottenham. They did make a few good signings so far this summer, signing Van de Ven, Manor Solomon, and also most notably James Maddison. But I just don't think that these 3 players are going to help them enough to finish in the top 6. But if Tottenham was to lose Harry Kane, honestly, I could see them possibly finishing even lower than this because he is one of the main players in their team. And if they lose him, I don't know where the goals are going to come from. Coming in at 7th place, and this may be a surprising one, I've put Aston Villa. Honestly, I wouldn't even be surprised if Aston Villa finished in the top 6 next season because they have made some incredible signings so far this summer. They signed Pau Torres, Yuri Tielemans, and also Moussa Diaby. 1 defender, 1 midfielder, and 1 attacker. And I think that these 3 players, along with Unai Emery and all the other amazing talents in their team, I really think that they will finish 7th place or maybe even higher. Coming in at 6th place, I've put Chelsea FC. Honestly, I've been seeing a lot of people putting Chelsea in the top 5 and maybe even in the top 4, but I just don't think that's realistic. With how poorly Chelsea did last season, finishing in the bottom half in the Premier League, I just don't think that within one season they're going to finish in the top 4. I think that's very unrealistic. Chelsea have made a few good signings this summer, and obviously they're not playing in any UEFA competition next season, and because of that, pretty much their only focus is the Premier League. So I do think that they will have a decent season. Finishing in 6th place is considered a very good season after finishing in the bottom half. But I just can't see them finishing any higher than that. Also, Nkunku just got injured a few days ago, and supposedly he's going to be out for up to 4 months. So I think that this could also affect Chelsea in a negative way, and that's why I've put them finishing in 6th place. Coming in at 5th place, I've put Newcastle. Honestly, I think that a lot of people expected Newcastle to do more this summer, but when you really look at it, they have made a few good signings for their team. They signed Livramento, obviously the defender. They signed Harvey Barnes and also Sandro Tonali, a great midfielder. Obviously, Newcastle are going to be playing Champions League football next season, which could affect them negatively in the Premier League. But I still think that they're going to finish in the top 5. I think they're going to finish 5th. Coming in at 4th place, we're now in the top 4 in the Premier League for next season. I've put Liverpool. I think that last season was an off season for Liverpool. At the start of the season, they were playing horribly, but towards the end of the season, they started picking it up and they started performing much better and obviously finishing in the Europa League spots. This summer, Liverpool have made a couple good signings like Szoboszlai and McAllister, but they've also lost a few midfielders from their team, which I think could actually affect them next season. They lost Fabinho, they lost Milner, they lost Henderson, they lost Carvalho, and with the loss of these players, they just don't have as much depth in the midfield that they did last season. And for that reason, I don't think they're going to finish in the top 3, but I do think that they're going to finish in 4th place. Coming in at 3rd place, I've put Manchester United. I think that Manchester United are going to have a great season this year. They've obviously made a few good signings this summer: Mason Mount, Andre Onana, and most recently Rasmus Højlund. Honestly, I think that Højlund was a little bit too much. 70 million for him is a lot. I watched him last season with Atalanta, and yes, he was good, but definitely not worth 70 million. But obviously they did need a striker, and I think that Højlund is the perfect player for them, and that's why I think they're going to finish in 3rd place. Now we have finally made it to the top 2. Only 2 teams remain: Manchester City and Arsenal. Who will finish 2nd? Who will finish 1st? I think that 2nd place will be Manchester City. To be honest, do I really think that Arsenal are going to win the league? Probably not. I think that Manchester City probably have an 85% chance to win the league again. But there are a few reasons why I put Manchester City in 2nd and Arsenal in 1st. Obviously, everyone knows how good Manchester City is. They are probably the best team in the world. But they did lose a couple important players this summer. They lost Gundogan and they also lost Mahrez. Both of these players were incredibly important for Manchester City last season. And although they did try and replace Gundogan by signing Kovacic, and they also just recently signed Guardiola, I just think that Gundogan had more importance on that team. I think that he was a key player in that team. Arsenal, on the other hand, have had, in my opinion, one of the best transfer windows out of any other club in Europe. This summer alone, Arsenal have signed Declan Rice, Kai Havertz, Yuri Timber, and also, I already mentioned him, they also signed David Raya. I think that these 4 players will be very, very important for Arsenal's success this season, and they also increase their squad depth. Obviously, Arsenal are playing in the Champions League, they're playing in the Premier League, they're playing in all these competitions, so they needed more squad depth, and that is what they've gotten this summer by signing these 4 amazing players. Another reason why I think that Arsenal is going to be much better this season than they were last season is because last season was their first real time being in a title race in many years. They were ahead of Manchester City for so much of the season, but in the final moments, those final games, they bottled it. But I think that this season, having gone through that experience last year, they'll know how to perform in these tight situations, in the crunch moments. And I think that this will really help them next season. And that is the end of my official Premier League predictions for next season. If you guys did enjoy this video, remember to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And if you agree with my list, let me know in the comments down below. But if you disagree with my list and you think that a specific team is going to finish either higher or lower than what I said on my list, again, let me know in the comments down below, and stay tuned for more videos.